Tonight on NewsWatch Ole Miss, coronavirus testing is back on campus this week. We'll tell you when and where you can get tested.
And it may not be a foolproof method of testing, but one venue used these canines to help prevent spreading the virus last week. We'll take a look at COVID sniffing dogs.
And experts say the worst of this COVID wave is in the rearview mirror. We'll take a look at the state of the pandemic in Mississippi and nationwide. NewsWatch Ole Miss starts now. Good evening and welcome to NewsWatch Ole Miss. I'm Mason Ciano.
And I'm Darielle Johnson. The university is once again offering on-campus COVID testing. Students, faculty, and staff will be eligible for testing Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Testing will also be available on non-home game Saturdays from noon to 4 p.m. and on home game Sundays from noon to 4 p.m. According to the Daily Mississippian, although drive-through rapid testing was offered last year, the new walk-in testing center expands testing availability across campus.
The Delta variant ran in Mississippi, causing case numbers significantly higher than this time last year. But the good news is that cases have been on a steady decline over the last several weeks. The Mississippi Department of Health reported a little under 1,800 cases for this past weekend. The three-day average of 591 cases marks a 34% decline from the previous weekend. Lafayette County reported 27 new cases for the same three-day period, down 32 reported last Monday.
According to the MSDH, over 90% of Mississippians are pleased with the vaccination process. Out of 856 vaccinated individuals, 92% were pleased with their experience in terms of friendliness and wait time.
Once again, coronavirus cases are on the decline. Despite that, experts say that we are still in the midst of a pandemic, but may have turned a corner. Britt Conway has a look at what health experts are experiencing through the end of the year.
Every morning I come in and go through every COVID patient, determine who's on ventilators. I have to report the deaths. Unfortunately, it's a daily event.
Hospitals all over the country are straining against COVID-19. Deaths are on the rise, even as new cases decline. But experts say don't let the case count fool you. Delta isn't done.
I'm not at all convinced that the Delta surge has peaked in the U.S., and I fully expect case counts to go up again across the country over the weeks and months to come.
This Delta wave is going to surge across the country and hit different regions at different times.
But once it plays out,
this may be the last major wave of infection. I think by Thanksgiving, you'll have seen this move its way through the country. The virus isn't going away, but prevalence levels will decline to a level that feels more manageable.
But what exactly does manageable mean? We were seeing a 7-day average of up to 160,000 cases a day at the peak of the surge. Right now, the CDC says that average is closer to 114,000 new cases a day. And Dr. Gottlieb expects will eventually drop down to about 20,000 cases a day. But getting there depends on more people getting vaccinated.
There's still a lot of pockets of vulnerability, and COVID's so contagious, it finds its way into those pockets of vulnerability.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
Right now, case numbers are the lowest they've been in months.
You may be used to seeing dogs sniff out drugs, but the dogs at the Black Keys concert last Thursday were looking for something different. Reporter Sarah Gail Myers has more on this story.
For the past 10 years, the company Biodetection Canine, based out of Alabama, has been training dogs to detect diseases in agriculture and, more recently, viruses in humans. President Jerry Johnson helps to explain the company's research.
So we switched focus to COVID, using the same training methodologies and same technologies that we use with agriculture.
The company, with help from Chief Scientific Officer William Schneider, trains their dogs to literally sniff out the virus.
He gets a live virus and he extracts sequences of proteins that mimic the odor of the virus.
According to Johnson, their research has shown that the dogs are over 94% accurate in detecting the virus, sometimes even early on in the infection.
But on 2 occasions, somebody that the dog gave a false positive came back within 5 days, now being symptomatic, not feeling well, retested, and that they were now positive.
Johnson says that while many people are usually skeptical when they hear about what the dogs are looking for, sniffing out viruses is more natural to them than finding artificial substances such as drugs.
But in nature, a dog wouldn't pay any attention to explosive or narcotic. It's just not part of their world. But dogs are always looking for biology.
The next step for the company is to start training the dogs to detect different strands of the virus, like the Delta variant.
So in a matter of weeks, we will now have the proteins for the Delta variant, and then we will go back and refresh all of our dogs on both.
With all of this new research, there is a good chance you will see these dogs sniffing around Oxford even more. Sarah Gail Myers, NewsWatch Ole Miss.
So sorry for those technical difficulties. Johnson clarified that these dogs are not yet considered a diagnostic tool, but the company is working with the FDA to approve them as one.
The state's test scores took a dip thanks to the pandemic, but the Oxford School District's numbers were well above the state average. Oxford students were some 18% more proficient in math and 14% more proficient in English language arts than the rest of the state. But OSD reports that students who participated in virtual learning scored 10 to 21% lower than those who had face-to-face instruction all year.
Congress is staring down the barrel of a government shutdown this week as a series of controversial votes loom. We'll take a look at those votes straight ahead, but first, here's a look at your current conditions.
Each year, hurricanes and major flooding threaten cities, towns, and rural homes across the Gulf states. So chances are there will be more storms and floods near here again. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has all the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove.
You told me not to do drugs.
You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
You think getting dumped by text is harsh? Try getting dumped by a tennis ball. My ex-owner drove me out to the woods, yelled fetch, and by the time I brought the ball back, he was gone. Yeah, I was pissed. But the folks at the shelter helped me let go of my anger. I learned coping skills, like taking it to the hole. Boom! Now I'm ready to fetch again. But how about I throw and you run and get it?
It's a critical week in Washington as Congress faces a series of significant votes to avert a government shutdown, raise the debt ceiling, and determine the fate of the sweeping dual-pronged infrastructure plans that are key to President Joe Biden's economic agenda. Chris Wynn is in Washington to break it all down.
On Capitol Hill, a make-or-break week for President Joe Biden's agenda.
We got three things to do: the debt ceiling, continuing resolution, and the two pieces of legislation. If we do that, the country's going to be in great shape.
On the line, a potential remake of the economy at a cost of $3.5 trillion over the next decade. The Democrats' spending bill includes major investments in social programs, including universal pre-K, community college, health care, and family leave. Seniors would also see an expansion of Medicare benefits.
The Budget Committee passed out the Build Back Better legislation at the full $3.5 trillion. Obviously, with negotiations, there'll have to be some changes in that. The sooner, the better.
But congressional Democrats also face the looming threat of a government shutdown, with funding set to run out on Thursday. A Senate vote Monday to keep the government open is also tied to raising the debt ceiling and set to fail amid Republican opposition.
I will certainly be voting no if the Democrats insist on combining the debt ceiling increase or suspension with the continuing operations of the government.
Also at issue this week, a separate $1 trillion infrastructure bill providing investments in the power grid, water supply, high-speed internet, and public transit. A House vote on that package has been postponed until Thursday. In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn reporting.
On Monday, the Supreme Court will be deciding which cases will be argued before the High Court. Justices are meeting to discuss the court's docket for the upcoming term. The court has already said they will be looking at several cases, including a Second Amendment case in November and a case that is a direct challenge to abortion rights in December. The court's new term starts on October 4th.
Today, a New York court convicted singer R. Kelly on charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. Despite Kelly's not guilty pleas on all counts, Darielle Forges has the details of the trial.
Today's guilty verdict forever brands R. Kelly as a predator who used his fame and fortune to prey on the young, the vulnerable, and the voiceless.
Infamous singer R. Kelly convicted on several charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. The jury, made up of 7 men and 5 women, made their decision after a month of testimony and evidence.
To the victims in this case, your voices were heard and justice was finally served.
The prosecution brought more than 40 witnesses to the stand. The witnesses included former employees, former live-in girlfriends, and others. Prosecutors said Kelly had physically and sexually abused women and girls. The prosecution framed Kelly as a leader of a criminal enterprise with the help of his associates to recruit young women and girls to engage in sexual activity.
He has this type of intimidation right off the bat. I was just waiting for it to be over.
The defense described the charge as overreaching and that many of the relationships were consensual. Kelly's defense team called a handful of witnesses to the stand who say they never saw abuse by Kelly. The R&B singer previously addressed the accusations after numerous women came forward in the documentary Surviving R. Kelly.
They was describing Lucifer. I'm not Lucifer.
In Brooklyn, New York, I'm Daryl Forges.
After being found guilty, Kelly could face life in prison.
The United States saw a significant rise in murder last year. The newly released FBI crime report showed an almost 30% increase in homicides from 2019 to 2020, the largest single-year increase of documented crimes since the 1960s. There were nearly 22,000 killings in the U.S. last year, but overall crime decreased by about 6%. The FBI collects this data from law enforcement, but many departments do not participate. Several large cities, including New York, Chicago, and New Orleans, did not submit data.
After widespread outcry and reports that Instagram knew of the negative impact its app could have on teenage girls, the company has canned plans to launch a children's version of its app. It had planned to cater a new app to kids under 13 years old, but it now says it will pause to talk to parents, experts, policymakers, and regulators. The canceled app would have allowed parents and guardians to manage accounts in an effort to reduce the number of people lying about their age to use the current Instagram app. The company, which is owned by Facebook, announced not to launch the app in the wake of an upcoming Senate subcommittee hearing on Thursday on how social media impacts children's mental health.
Welcome to Sports Watch. I'm Ruby Dreher. Coming up next in sports, two former Rebels shined yesterday on NFL Sunday, and the Rebels football team has yet made another jump in the AP poll. Find out more up next in Sports Watch.
I am a nurse,
a firefighter, a college student,
a mother, and I am an American soldier.
I will always be ready
for every storm and disaster that threatens my community. I will always be there to protect my neighbors,
my family,
and my country.
We are the Army National Guard.
We are the Army National Guard.
We are the Army National Guard.
Visit nationalguard.com to learn more about part-time service.
Yeah! Sam, Elmo!
Oh, hey, Julia. Are you ready to play band with us? I'm going to play my clarinet.
And Elmo's going to play his drum. Drum loud.
Oh, well, you know what to do, Julia.
Julia knows.
Mm-hmm. With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music. Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
I just found out my work party is a +1. You want to go? This is my boss, Ella.
Nice to meet you, Greg.
You're welcome. Nope, I'm high. But I'll clean the kitchen while you're gone.
You're already making good decisions when you're high.
Pool party at Jesse's. Can you drive? I'm toasted.
Nope, I'm high. But I can order us a ride.
Don't make an exception when it comes to driving. If you feel different, you drive different.
Starting things off on the gridiron, DK Metcalf and Dawson Knox bounced back after an unusual start to their seasons. Rebel fans were able to see former Ole Miss wideouts shine yesterday for their teams. DK Metcalf had 6 receptions for 107 yards and 1 touchdown against Minnesota, averaging almost 18 yards a reception. The Buffalo Bills starting tight end had a touchdown of his own, as well as 4 receptions for 49 yards. Dawson Knox has been crucial for the Bills this year, but had a standout performance in Week 3. Metcalf and the Seahawks are sitting at 1-2 on the season, and the Bills are 2-1. As for some other NFL Rebels, A.J. Brown suffered a hamstring injury and didn't play the second half, and Elijah Moore suffered a concussion against the Broncos. Their returns to the gridiron are both questionable. Keeping things on the gridiron, the Ole Miss football team continued to jump in the polls despite not playing this weekend. The Rebels moved up 1 spot in the AP poll to number 12 on the season. They were previously 13. Ole Miss coming in at number 12 is the highest ranking in the poll since October of 2016. This newly released poll sets up a top 15 matchup for the Rebels this weekend as they head to Tuscaloosa to take on number 1 Alabama. Kicking things over to the soccer pitch, the Ole Miss soccer team fell to the Arkansas Razorbacks on the road yesterday despite an early lead in the match. Mo O'Connor scored in the 11th minute before the Razorbacks kicked things into high gear. Arkansas scored 4 goals in the second half to ruin the chances of a Rebel 3-0 SEC start. Ole Miss will stay on the road as they head to Gainesville, Florida to take on the Gators on October 3rd. You'll be able to watch the Rebels on SEC Network at 2 p.m.
Serving things up on the tennis court, the Ole Miss tennis team kicked off their home opener with the Ole Miss Fall Invite in Oxford. The Rebels faced Kansas State, Georgia, and Alabama in the three-day tournament. Georgia went undefeated in the tournament, while Ole Miss won 14 total matches across the three-day event. The tournament wrapped up on Sunday and featured two dominant victories from Rika Zadori and Anna L. Leclerc-Fisher. The Rebels play again today through Sunday in the ITF Pro Circuit in Lubbock, Texas. And finally, skating over to the hockey rink, the Ole Miss hockey team didn't have the weekend they expected to have after falling to the Georgia Ice Dogs. UGA swept the Ole Miss Hockey Club in the first SEC matchups of the 2021 season. The Bulldogs took the first game 7-2 in a dominant performance. Ole Miss was looking for revenge in the second game, but were unable to get it, falling to Georgia again by a score of 4-2. The Rebels start the year 0-2 before playing Montana hockey on October 1st through the 2nd. That's all I've got for sports. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at rebel_sports for the latest sports updates.
Thanks, Ruby.
And most of us are used to Miss players run the bases at Swayze.
We may have a new favorite player soon. Find out who and what next on NewsWatch Ole Miss.
We are Ole Miss Rebels. As Mississippi's flagship university, we dig deeper, see farther, work harder. We pioneered human organ transplants. We helped prove Einstein's theory of gravitational waves. We are distinguished as a Carnegie R1 top 2.5% research institution. We are Ole Miss, transforming lives and the world.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Well, I sure wish this guy could play for Ole Miss. Macho, a Russell Terrier, became the fastest dog to ever run the bases at a Major League Baseball stadium.
He scooted around the bases at Dodger Stadium in a time of 21.06 seconds. Macho's trainer spent a year and a half teaching Macho how to run the bases, and all that hard work definitely paid off.
Macho ran the bases as dominantly as the Cardinals have been on the 16-game winning streak, just running through those MLB opponents.
As a Dodgers fan, I'm sure glad, because Macho definitely brought good luck as they swept the Cardinals this weekend.
As someone who is not a Dodgers fan, Macho seems like the sweetest boy, and he definitely did a good job.
And that's all we've got tonight for Newswatch. I'm Mason Ciano.
And I'm Darielle Johnson. Thank you and good night.